and a very warm welcome to everybody here. First and foremost, of course, to our Young Leaders Forum members, student invitees, our delegates, facilitators, speakers. We have a really large and happy family gathered here. So very warm welcome to all of you on behalf of the Global Education and Leadership Foundation. A mouthful, so therefore we just call ourselves TGELF. Before we launch ourselves into the very busy and interesting morning today, I'd like to tell you all a little bit and remind many of you a little bit about our foundation. The vision that all of us at the foundation have is actually symbolized by all the young members of the Leaders Forum here. The expectation that we have from all of you is that you will be the future agents of change for the better, so that you leave behind a planet which will be a happier and a safer environment for the generations that come. So that's a big responsibility really on your shoulders, but you all have been handpicked to be with us today. You all have been handpicked because in you we see the hope, we see the signs of the ability to be able to do good things, to do better things, and to create a better world for all of us. My advice to you all is that don't hesitate and don't feel underconfident. Don't ever feel, I'm an individual, what can I do? How am I ever going to make a difference? So I'll carry on doing whatever I'm doing. Never ever feel like that. Because every individual counts. And remember, when you think about an Abraham Lincoln or a Mahatma Gandhi, it was an individual who decided that something can be done. And that individual was able to create that kind of atmosphere that many people joined in. And that's what we expect and hope will emerge someday from you as you move on your path towards fulfilling your dreams in life. And looking at myself, when I got married, many years ago that is, I resigned myself, and I really use the word resigned because like yesterday Shweta spoke to us, we all have dreams when you are 10, 11, 12, 13. But I resigned myself to the fact, well, this is my life, that you get married and you be a good wife, a good hostess, you bring up your children. But along the way, somewhere, I remember dropping my son at school one day, and the father principal of the school came out and said, Mrs. Ishwar, I need some help from you. One of my priests has gone on leave. Do you think you can step in and take his classes for 3 months? I hesitated, but I said yes, because it's something different to do. And when I went into the classroom, I still remember the first day that I went in, there was trepidation because I never ever taught in my life before, and this was all of class 9. And class 9, if you kids will remember, is not an easy class to deal with. So when I went in there, but within 5 minutes, a kind of excitement unfolded. And I felt, it's a wonderful thing to do. And that's how I found my career. But thereafter, one has to, nobody else is going to come and tell you this is good for you and you're going to do it. At that stage, it's a decision you make, a choice that you make. That this is something that makes me feel happy. This is something that makes me feel rewarded, and therefore I want to do it. But if you want to do it, you have to step out and do something about it. I had to go out and do my master's degree. I had to go out and do my B.Ed degree. And there was nobody who was going to tell me you've got to do it. It's something that has to come from within you. And then there are challenges, because it's not that you decide, I'm going to do it, and it happens. You again have to work for it. But you need that kind of determination. You need that happiness in what you are doing. So please, like Sanya spoke to you all yesterday, never choose a career because you think it's going to give you a good life and lots of money, because it leaves you feeling hollow at the end of it. You must always pick up something that lights that spark within you, that at the end of the day you go home and say, I've enjoyed the day today. And remember, there's nothing known as a smooth path in life. There are trials, there are tribulations, there are failures, but it's all a part of the entire experience of living. And it's something that we need to subsume within ourselves and move along, imbibing the good, the bad, that everything comes along in the way. And what you create of it in the end is something that is you. And that special you is what we see in all you young people who are seated here. And if you look at the program that T-Gelf has put together for you, you will see there is a lot of emphasis on what I wouldn't really call values, I would really call necessary life skills for surviving in the 21st century. Skills like, how do you react if you are in an ethical dilemma? If there's a conflict going on in your classroom or in your wherever you are in office space, how are you going to deal with it? There is so much that is sad and that hurts you going on around you. What's the role that you will play in such a situation? What are the steps you will take to reach out to people who will benefit from the hand that you hold out to them? These are the questions that are going to arise every single day in our lives. And this, I use the word skill because unless internally, using your inner resources, you make a plan of how you are going to deal with it, your daily life will never ever be rewarding. And therefore, the opening plenary speech today is going to revolve around a focal point, and that is empathy. If you look at the word empathy, it's not just a word in the dictionary. If you look at compassion, it's not a word in the dictionary. It's something that you have to live. These are qualities that are being passed down to us through the wisdom traditions of many, many religions. And if we don't accept that, understand that, and make it a part of us, you are not moving in that continuum. And if you don't remain in the continuum, then that is how problems arise. Why do we have so many ecological, environmental issues today? Because we have moved away from the wisdom continuum that has been handed down to us over the centuries. If you look at the Indian tradition and look back towards our past, go back to the Aryan ages, you would see that many of the things that they stood for are not irrelevant today. And they are within us. It's for us to realize it is there. Now, when we had the riots at the time of the partition, and Gandhiji stood up and held his hands out to so many people, do you know he was a representative of the continuum of our traditions, the continuum of compassion and of empathy and of caring for others. He lived the traditions that have been handed down to us over the centuries. So it is for you and me to remember that. Take pride in the traditions that have been handed down and to live it. So each one of you, whether you are a first year, whether you are in school, whether you are a high school, you are a senior in your university, there are moments in your life. Just think back even for a few minutes. You will find there have been moments in the last 1 year when you could have or you have held out your hand and helped somebody else. And remember, help is not only about money. It's not about giving somebody a few pennies or giving somebody a scholarship. It's about what are you giving the other person of yourself. What are you doing to reach out to the other person as an individual? Are you sharing what you have within you with the others? And at T-Gelf, all of us here keep this as our vision and goal, that this is what we want to convey to you all and exhort you all to live your lives for yourselves. Yes, it has to happen, but also for others. Because if you are going to live your life only for yourself, there will be a time, 10, 20, 30 years down, when you will feel like an empty shell. And if you want, and you know what you give, you always get back. Everything that goes comes round. I firmly believe in that. So if you are helping somebody today, I can assure you, tomorrow when you need help, there will be somebody. You may wonder why I'm not talking about global risks and global challenges and talking about this. But you know, when you want to deal with global risks and challenges, it starts here, within you. And if you 120 children today young adults were to get together with the promise that you'll work together as a family, can you imagine the kind of change you can bring about tomorrow? You will be a very powerful group. You will be a powerful unit that will actually force policy changes and create a better environment for everybody all around to live in. So, having got carried away with my words, I have a look at the clock and pull myself back. See, all of you have been to schools and colleges. You know what professors and teachers are like. Give them a mic and then they take off. But very warm welcome to you all again today. And we have a really exciting day ahead. And please make the most of it so that we jointly make our vision come true. And I want to conclude with a little dream that I have at the moment, that many years down the line, or maybe a decade down the line, say, the Prime Minister of India and the President of Pakistan emerge from this group. Can you imagine them being on the same dialogue? What a wonderful world we will create then. So good luck, and I hope you'll make all these dreams come true. Thank you.
So on that note that Mrs. Ishwaran left off on, I'm just extremely pleased to welcome Ms. Laura White. She's a member of the Empathy Initiative of Ashoka University, and she manages the Changemaker Schools network, which is a group of schools that have given empathy as much importance as math and literacy. She's also a founding member of Tulane's Ashoka University Changemaker campus team and graduated from Tulane University with a BA in political economy. So we welcome Ms. Laura White for the opening plenary on empathy.
Hello there. I can't tell you how excited I am to be here today. For everyone that I've been able to speak with so far, I have learned so much, and I can't wait to continue to speak with everyone here. I hope I get the chance. Oh, perfect. So PowerPoint looks ready. What I thought we would do to start off the morning was take a little bit of a quiz. And this isn't a typical quiz. You're not going to be graded. It's not high stakes, but it gets you thinking a little bit about the skill of empathy and what's involved in that. So this quiz comes from University of California, Berkeley's Greater Good Science Center, which studies the science of a meaningful life. What I'm going to do is show you a picture of a face, and I'm going to ask you to tell me, by show of hand, what emotion you think that face is expressing. So, for our first face, our options are going to be embarrassment, fear, sadness, and surprise. So here's the face. Take a look at it, and I'll take a poll in just a minute. Give you an opportunity to study a little bit. Okay, so why don't you raise your hand if you think this face is showing embarrassment? Okay, big group of people. Who thinks that this face is showing fear? Okay, smaller group. Sadness? Okay, nobody. And last but not least, surprise. Okay, a few more folks. So, drum roll. The answer is fear. Oh-ho, kind of tricky, isn't it? Let's do another one. So here's the next face. I want you to tell me whether this person is flirting with you. Are they being flirtatious? Or if they're showing interest, if they're showing happiness, or if they're just being polite. Here he is. Take a good look. Just so you know, I only got 50% of these right the first time I tried it, so do not worry. It's just a little eye-opener. So who thinks that this person is flirting with you? Raise your hand. Okay. How about interest? Who thinks this person is showing interest? Okay, I see one hand, maybe two. Happiness? Okay, a few more folks. And politeness. Okay, most people think he's being polite. Let's see. Happiness. Aha! Give yourselves a pat on the back for that one if you got that. Here's another question. So tell me what you think this face is expressing in just a minute. Your options are anger, disgust, sadness, and embarrassment. not a happy face. So take a look. Think about it. Okay, who thinks that this face is showing anger? Okay, good group of folks. How about disgust? Okay, another big group. Sadness? Oh, this is looking pretty evenly divided. Embarrassment. Okay, here we go. Anger. All right. Okay. We have 2 more to try out, so let's do the next one. So the options for this face are embarrassment, sadness, amusement, and shame. All right, I'll let you think about that one for a minute. It's a little tricky. Who thinks that this face is showing embarrassment? Okay, a big group. Sadness? Okay. Amusement? Ah, a big group there too. And shame. All right. This face is showing embarrassment. Yeah. All right, last but not least, let's do one more. So the options for this face coming up are pride, contempt, excitement, and anger. Okay, I'm hearing some folks call stuff out, so that might mean that we're ready. Who thinks that this face is showing pride? Big group. Okay. Contempt? Another big group. Excitement? Okay. And anger. Okay, a few folks. So the answer to this one is pride. Very good. So I think this is a fun exercise because it shows you that reading other people is a little bit more tricky than one would think, right? It's kind of hard.
Did anyone get all right?
Oh, did anybody get all right? Wow. Good job to you. Round of applause. So this we think is actually quite important. You might be wondering, what does being able to read another face have to do with leadership or social entrepreneurship or being a change agent in the world? But at Ashoka, the organization that I represent, we actually think it has to do a lot with being an ethical leader. So first I want to tell you a little bit about Ashoka this morning. For those of you that haven't heard about it before, Ashoka is an international organization, and what we're really known for is establishing the field of social entrepreneurship. Who's heard of social entrepreneurship before? All right, a good number of folks in the room. For those that haven't heard about it, social entrepreneurship is essentially creating a systems-changing solution to a social problem. And Ashoka coined this term, and we spent the past 30 years searching the world for the leading social entrepreneurs who are addressing different problems. And we've named these people Ashoka Fellows. And as you can see, we've been really busy. We've found fellows in over 82 countries. These people are working across many different issue areas, such as education, healthcare, economic development, human rights, the environment. And over time, we've also been analyzing trends among the people that we recognize and trying to understand what makes these folks successful as change agents in their communities. And we learned something really interesting. Most of these Ashoka Fellows, when they were young, had an experience where they really developed a sense of agency and made change, much like the experiences that you all are having. And furthermore, these experiences actually help them develop their empathy and emotional intelligence skills. And so in a world that's changing at an increasingly rapid pace and where problems are becoming even more complex, we decided that our organization, Ashoka, really needed to make sure that every child had an experience when they were young, when they got to lead and be a change agent. And so that's what we're really focused on now, and we've been doing this for some time. And this actually benefited me a lot because we started this work when I was a kid. That's me. Sadly, I don't look too different, but this is when I was younger. And I was a guinea pig for Ashoka's program called Youth Venture. And essentially, what Ashoka decided was to work with young people, mostly teenagers, to help them start their first social enterprise. And so when I was a teenager, I was working through a lot of different issues that were really important to me. I'm from Atlanta, Georgia, which is in the southeast United States. And while I was in high school, I met my best friend who was homeless. And this was really painful for me because I saw her experience a lot of stuff that nobody should have to experience. And so as an angsty teenager, I'm trying to figure out, like, what can I do? What is the role that this small individual can play in such a big problem that my friend is facing? And then meanwhile, the other thing that I had going was that I was a competitive swimmer. And so that was my hobby. I thought it was just for fun. I didn't really put the two together as an opportunity to make a change until I was volunteering with a group of low-income kids from Atlanta at a lake in North Georgia, and a few of them got into a near-drowning experience. And I realized, wow, like, this small individual and the other people that I swim with have some skill that we can share with others. And so Ashoka came along and said, awesome, we're trying to help young people have their first experience in leading change. Do you want to apply? Submit a business plan. And I was like, oh, business plan. I've never done that. I'm 16. But I gave it a try and seized the opportunity. And Ashoka sent me a check for $891 to start a swimming program, and that program's still going on today. So that was kind of my first experience with Ashoka. And I've been involved ever since in helping them think through how can we get more people engaged in leading change. And while I was in college, Ashoka started thinking more about how we have this experience in leading change happen even younger. And what are the skills that very young children need to be mastering in order so that they can make a positive difference throughout their lives. And so when I graduated, I joined Ashoka's Start Empathy initiative. And this is really exciting work, I think. This is perhaps the most exciting thing that we're doing right now, although I am a little biased. So the Empathy Initiative's goal is to make empathy the foundational skill for leading change as valued in education as math and science and literacy skills, these other things that are more traditionally considered a part of your educational experience. And how do you do that, you might ask? The first thing that we do is recognize more Ashoka Fellows that are developing innovations around the world that are helping young people really learn empathy. And some of these folks are pictured at the bottom of this screen. So for example, this woman right here, her name is Aletta Margulis. She is also a Brown alum, so some people might be excited by that. And she created something called the Center for Inspired Teaching. And we recognized her as an Ashoka Fellow in the US because this center trains teachers to make empathy the core part of their teaching practice. And so wherever these teachers go and whatever children they touch throughout their profession, they're really keeping empathy at the core of how they teach everything else, which we think is really important. And so recognizing these Ashoka Fellows is one part of what we do. Another thing that we do is try to change the conversation in media about what's really important in education. And so you see here in this tiny picture a photo of the Washington Post. And we work with different media outlets to try and share what these Ashoka Fellows are doing. And so this spring, the Washington Post ran a story about one of the fellow programs that actually brings babies into the classroom and uses babies as teachers. Because as kids engage with babies, they start to learn about how emotions are expressed on one's face from their experience in elementary school. And that really helps people develop that foundation of empathy very early on. And then the third thing that we do is we recognize leading schools that have really figured out, and no matter context they're in, how to cultivate empathy in children and how to make sure every one of their students has an experience leading change. And these are called Changemaker Schools, and that's the program that I manage. So this map shows all of the Changemaker Schools that we've recognized around the United States so far. And to be a Changemaker School, you have to engage in a really rigorous selection process where Ashoka evaluates the curriculum that you use, the school culture that you've created, and the different systems you have in place, from parent engagement to professional development to discipline policy to really determine that empathy is at the core of everything that you do. And so these schools have all received this designation. And in our work, particularly in the United States, which is where we started piloting this, we really strove to make sure the schools we recognized represent a diversity of schooling experiences across the US. So on here, there's a school that's on a Native American reservation. There are schools in rural communities. There are schools in very urban communities, low-income communities, wealthier communities, private schools, public schools, charter schools. It runs the gamut. And we think that's really important because we're trying to show that any school and any teacher can build empathy in their students. And so what are we doing now that we have elected all these schools? We have started looking for schools elsewhere. So the other 37 or so Ashoka offices have started recognizing schools in other countries. And this year, we started recognizing schools in Ireland, in the UK, Belgium, France, Kenya, Uganda, Nigeria, many other places, because we think this really needs to be a global movement. All education systems everywhere should ensure that every child has an experience leading change, and that every child really masters empathy the way that they are striving to master academic skills. So, I want to do another exercise with you right now. What I'd like you to do in just a minute is to think about someone that you really admire, perhaps the person that you admire most in the whole world, your role model. Close your eyes and picture them in your mind. Great, and once you have that person, think about the first word that comes to mind when you think about this individual. Raise your hand once you have that word. Excellent. Okay, that looks like most of the room. Does anyone want to volunteer the word that they thought of? Yes. Strong-minded. And yes? Visionary. Yes. Determined. Brilliant. Yes. Class. All right. Yes. Humble. Oh, go ahead. Remarkable. Yes. Calm. Yes. Intelligent. Yes. Connected. Sacrifice. Yes. Giving in the back. What is that? Smart. Okay. Passionate. Yes. Initiative. Very back. Amazing. Yes. Compassionate. I like that one. Yes. What is that? Patient. Thank you. Yes. Kind. Curious. Loving. Yes. Happy. Yes. Can you say that a little louder? Did someone? Oh, emphasis? Self-esteem. Excellent. That's a great. Selflessness. Even better. Thank you. Does anyone else want to share? Yes. Respect. Yes. Positive. Yes. Strong. Yes. Innovative. So something kind of interesting with that, we heard a few people that said like smart and intelligent, and that's related, but no one said, what I really admire about that person is they got perfect scores in math, you know, or that they're the best reader that I've ever met. And that's kind of important, right? Because a lot of you are working in education, or you're working to cultivate people in an informal education sort of way that can really lead your projects in the future. And if you're not already, you're going to be educating your employees to lead projects that are important to you and your team. And so as you work on these different education initiatives, I challenge you to think about what's really important. Certainly academics are, but it's not everything. As we've been speaking about, empathy and these ethical components of being a leader are really quite crucial. And are, we think, at least at Ashoka, very undervalued in the education system right now. And so my challenge to you is to think about, in your work, what are ways that you can value empathy more? What are some ways that you can try to cultivate it in others? And for those of you that work in education already and are working with schools, I have a favor to ask. I would love for you to recommend the leading schools that you find that are really good at cultivating empathy in kids and share them with Ashoka, because as you can see, we don't have enough schools in India yet, but we're trying to get there. So I thank you for your time. It looks like we have a little bit extra, so I'll add on a bonus activity if no one has any questions. But before I do that, I want to make sure you know that you can reach me and learn more about Ashoka's work with empathy at startempathy.org. And if you're not able to make the workshop today, we're actually launching an open online course with a lot of exercises that you can use in your communities to build empathy in others. And that course only takes about an hour to complete, so I highly recommend it if you're really curious about this stuff. So I'll open it up for questions right now, and really excited to hear what you think. Does anyone have any questions or comments? Yes?
So why the name Ashoka? Why?
Oh, that's a good question. So Ashoka was actually founded in India. That was where we started electing Ashoka Fellows first. And I think the motivation behind choosing Ashoka is that Ashoka himself went through a transformation where he moved from perhaps not being the most socially minded to then really striving to create the good of all and really promoting it among different communities that he worked with. So that was the inspiration behind choosing Ashoka when Bill Drayton, our founder, started the organization. That's a good question. Others? Yes?
So a mate of mine, I'm sitting next to my wife when I ask this question. When you're teaching empathy, is there differences between men and women?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, some people would argue that, but we actually think no. Empathy is a skill that everyone can have, and there's so much difference among any group of people. So yes, some people might be more predispositioned to being empathetic from the get-go, but we really believe that empathy is a skill that you can build. Some of you may have aced that empathy face reading quiz right off the bat, and other people might need to study those faces a little bit more, which, by the way, you can get that on the Greater Good Science Center's website, but it's a skill that we can all build. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Excellent. Other questions? Oh, yes. Oh, I love that question. Thank you for asking that. So for those of you that didn't hear, the question was, what are some activities and strategies that people use to build empathy? Was that right? Great. So we've actually been, again, studying the trends among the schools that we've recognized in the US so far, since we've been doing that for 2 years. And then we've also been analyzing the trends in Ashoka Fellow programs that work in empathy and education. And we actually have developed a framework for understanding what you need to do to really build empathy in people. So the first thing that you need to do is you need to create a space among the people in your program where empathy can really thrive. And then some specific strategies and activities that lend themselves to building empathy are group play, kind of like what we did in our first session. Collective problem solving, so engaging around a shared challenge. Storytelling, either by reading about people that lead lives different than you or hearing stories from others that you interact with. Or immersion, so literally putting yourself as much as you can in another person's shoes and engaging in a life different from your own. And then the other trend that we saw is that schools that did both of these things also gave their children opportunities to act. So there was time when kids saw a problem that they really cared about within the school day to actually design solutions and implement them. And I will be talking about this for 3 hours at the workshop today. So if you're curious to learn more specifics, that's what we'll be doing. Yes? Yes.
But even the understanding and the experience of it can change from place to place. So the DNA in that sense is universal yet particular. So how are you catering to that?
Yes, that's a great question. And that's something we've had to engage with at Ashoka, because the way Ashoka is structured is we're a bunch of country offices. So I led the Changemaker Schools effort in the United States, but this year we've been working, as you said, in other countries to try and recognize more schools and more fellows as well. And they found that they had to talk about it a little bit differently in other places. So other Ashoka country offices use similar words like whole child education. They talk about changemaker skills and include more elements of like creativity and other related skills that are really important to making change, but they didn't necessarily bill it in the empathy perspective just because they found that that was more effective for their audience. But honestly, it's a challenge we're still trying to figure out. And one thing that I think would be really great if you do decide to take our open online course, give me feedback, because I have no idea how relevant this course is actually going to be in the Indian context. And it would be really valuable to hear that from you, because you all are such experts in this work. And you would probably, through your feedback, be able to help us make sure it reaches more people in an effective way. So thank you for that. Any other questions? Oh, yes. Oh, that's a really good question. And honestly, I haven't thought about it quite as much, but my first reaction to that, and one of the things we'll be talking about this afternoon, is one of the best practices we actually learned from the Ashoka fellow, Aletta Margulis, and her school, the Inspired Teaching School, is they use a framework called the ABCDEs of learners' needs. And it's very much tied to, I think, that taxonomy. It's not so much physical per se in terms of referring to like the need for food and water, but it does address needs like the need to belong, the need to be autonomous and have choice and freedom, the need to feel competent in what you're doing, the need for what you're doing with children to be developmentally appropriate. And we actually have found that that coincides really nicely with thinking about how you model empathy for children as a teacher. And so I think that's a really nice place where we see those learning needs start to intersect with empathy at the core. Does that make sense? Excellent. Other questions?
When we talk about habits, we say that after age, they get solidified and we can't change them. So start strategies or practices with your MCs there in age bracket that is ideal, or is it universal to any age?
Oh, I love that question. So that's why with Ashoka's work, we really targeted this at the elementary school level. So working with children as young as 5 years old, or even in some cases when preschool is part of the public school system, as young as 3 years old. Because we think, again, from the habit standpoint, the earlier that you develop these skills in children, the more solidified they'll become in their worldview. So that's really ideal, but again, empathy is a skill that anyone can learn at any time. There's no critical period, per se, where you're suddenly unable to learn it when you're older. It's just, you probably have to change some habits like you're speaking about. And for some specific practices that might help you, in addition to the ones that we'll be sharing in the course and the workshop, the Greater Good Science Center is a really great resource for that. Yes?
What I wanted to ask was that empathy is something that might come from within you,
Mm-hmm.
but do you think it's a good idea to encourage it on people? Like, it's going to be like an external input for the person to a skill. So is that the right thing to do, or should it just be an internal, organic thing within you?
That's a great question. One of our Ashoka fellows, Mary Gordon, the person that started the program bringing babies into the classroom, she always says that empathy is something that is caught, not taught. And I think that's a really great way of thinking about it, actually, because we believe that the first thing that you need to do, and really to instill empathy in others, is to create the space and prepare the space where empathy can thrive. And so if you engage with people, you set the rules for your team, and you set like the physical space for your team in a way that promotes empathic engagement, I think you set people up to engage empathetically a little bit better. Does that make sense? Does that answer your question? Okay, great. Any other questions, or should we take a look at this quiz? Let's do a quick look. And we might not have time for everything, but I'll just at least show you a few of the questions. So I actually had a hard time. I had a hard time picking which quiz from the Greater Good Science Center to use, because they actually have a whole lot. There's an empathy quiz, there's the emotional intelligence quiz that we took at the beginning, and they also have an altruism quiz, which I thought was really great since that's one of your values. And so I at least wanted to show you some of the questions that they posed to people that they found scientifically valid to determine how altruistic you actually are. So let's just breeze through these. We won't take the quiz now. You can take it on their website, which is linked here, and I'll share the PowerPoint. And I encourage you to do that later. But here are some of the questions that they asked people. If possible, I would return lost money to the rightful owner. I would avoid aiding someone in a medical emergency if I could. Again, you see how much you agree with that statement or disagree. Helping friends and family is one of the great joys in life. I try to offer my help with any activities my community or school groups are carrying out. Volunteering to help someone is very rewarding. I rarely contribute money to a worthy cause. Doing volunteer work makes me feel happy. Unless they are part of my family, helping the elderly isn't my responsibility. When given the opportunity, I enjoy aiding others who are in need. Children should be taught about the importance of helping others. I dislike giving directions to strangers who are lost. I donate time or money to charities every month. Helping others is usually a waste of time. I feel at peace with myself when I have helped others. If the person in front of me in line in the store was short a few cents, I would pay the difference. I feel proud when I know that my generosity has benefited a needy person. Helping people does more harm than good because they come to rely on others instead of themselves. It feels wonderful to assist others in need, and giving aid to the poor is the right thing to do. And then I have the scores, so if we had time, we could tabulate these. But I encourage you to take it on their website. Thanks so much for listening, and thank you.
So on behalf of the whole TGAL family, I'd just like to thank Ms. White for taking us through the journey of the Ashoka Empathy Initiative and just like emphasizing the importance of empathy and true leadership. And we'd just like you to accept a small token of our appreciation. So.
TGALF, leading the change.